So we're going to go over the classifying the figure worksheet, especially the slope and classifying some of the shapes. We talked about some of these in class. I got some of you weren't here though, so I want to make sure you're good to go. So obviously just plotting points here. Don't forget that when you're plotting points, you go right and left first, up and down second. That's the opposite of slope. Okay. So I'm going to take you through my thinking on this problem. I look at this shape. I think it's a parallelogram. I can verify that by finding slope. So if you're getting confused on slope, it's just rise over runs. I like to draw the triangle on the outside. So it's a 1/4. And then I know it's getting smaller, so that's negative 1/4. If that's confusing to you, do like you did in algebra and go from one point to another. Up 1 to the left 4. Well, up 1 is positive, and to the left is 4. The nice thing is when you draw these little triangles, you can kind of see they look the same. This is also going to be negative 1/4. So that shows me that these two lines are parallel. And I'll do the same thing here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. And that's positive from left to right. So that's 5 over 5. I'm going to leave it as 5 over 5. You know that it's 1. And then this one also 5 over 5, which is 1. So opposite sides are parallel. That's a parallelogram. So you have your reasons. You always have to give a reason. Start out by thinking about what it looks like and then go from there. Now, I did this one on purpose. This is dirty. This is straight dirty. I drew all three of these with the same shape making tool. I made them with a square, and none of them is a square. So when I look at this, I think it's a square. If it's a square, it's a rhombus and a rectangle. Well, I can see that it's a rhombus because it has 4 equal sides, but it's not a rectangle, not 4 right angles. So I'm just going to stick with rhombus. 4 congruent sides. Your flow chart helps you organize your thoughts there. Okay, go to the next one. It looks like it's square. Can I show it's a square? Well, I don't know anything about the measures of the sides. There's no way I can show it's a square because I can't show that it's a rhombus. So I'm going to go down the next list is a rectangle. Opposite sides are parallel. Have a right angle here. Opposite sides are parallel. It's a parallelogram, which means opposite angles are congruent and adjacent angles are supplementary. So all of a sudden I have 4 right angles. Rectangle. Reason, 4 right angles. Go to the next one. I think it's a square. Then I look. Can't be. The sides are not congruent, but I do have 4 right angles. Rectangle. When I was helping people, lots of people missed this one, adding stuff to it. Okay, it says find all the slopes and for the sides of PUKE, what is the shape? So I look at this. It doesn't look like it's anything special. Maybe a trapezoid. Maybe those are parallel if it was a little crooked. So just find the slope and verify it. 3 and 3, so that is a negative slope, so that's negative 1. So if this one is not negative 1, these aren't parallel. So that's 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Definitely not the same. So those are not parallel. They are not congruent either because of the Pythagorean theorem. So neither parallel nor congruent. Go over here. Up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. To the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now this one also has a slope of positive 1. This one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And 1, 2, 3, 4. 6 over 4. Not parallel. The only thing you can say here, if this has a slope of positive 1, is it's 6 over 6. This has a slope of negative 1. There's a right angle right there because they are opposite reciprocals. So the shape is a quadrilateral because there's nothing special except 4 sides. All right. On to the back here. So we know we have a parallelogram because the opposite sides are parallel. So think about everything you know about a parallelogram. Opposite sides parallel, opposite sides congruent, opposite angles congruent, consecutive angles supplementary. That's all you need to find everything. So to find x, I look for x here and I say, what do I know? I know, well, opposite angles are equal. So x plus 10 equals 120. I also know that if this is 120, this is 120. So x, that's the same thing. Okay, to find y, what do I know? Well, here's y. Well, I know that 120 plus 2y equals 180 because consecutive angles are any two angles in a row in a parallelogram add up to 180. Or I could just use my common sense here and say if this is 120, that's 60. So 2y equals 60 either way. Area, base times height. I like to draw it like that at a right angle. I know the base is 14. The height is not 7. The height is 5. Height's at a right angle. You always got to look for that right angle. Okay, this next one is a really, really crazy picture. I did it so that you could see if you understand your properties. So it says, what value of x would make DORK a trapezoid? So if x is what, then I have some parallel lines here. Well, if these two add up to 180, then I have parallel lines. Well, I know that's 110. That means this has to be 70. So I can either do 2x minus 10 equals 70, or you can do 110 plus 2x minus 10 equals 180. Either one of those. This one's a little easier to solve. So x equals 40. If x equals 40, then this is 70. And stuff's getting kind of crazy because really this 105 would be better fitting up here. But it doesn't ask you about that. So it says DORK is not isosceles. So it says, what can y not be equal to? So I go over here to this y. Not isosceles means these can't be congruent. So you can solve it as if they were congruent and just say you're not allowed to equal that. So if they were equal, then it would be isosceles. They're not. So we put 8 there. Last question, measure of angle DOR if it's a trapezoid would be 75 because these have to have to 180. I think the 105 was supposed to be up there, but we'll just pretend it's to scale. Stinky made errors on the problem below. Can you find the errors and correct his work? So we have opposite sides equal, so it's a parallelogram. Area is base times height. Again, I like to draw the base and the height like that. Let's pretend it was standing straight up as a rectangle. Base is 12, and the height is 5. So the answer should have been 60. Okay, on Stinky problem 2, parallelogram because opposite sides are parallel. So opposite angles are equal. 2x plus 5. This is the most common mistake I see, is just adding everything up to 180. These angles are equal. These angles add up to 180. So Stinky should have put 2x plus 5 equals 100 and solve that. And so when you solve it, it's not going to come out nice, but it's still okay. It still can be correct if it's not an integer. Second part here, Stinky said y plus 10 plus 100 equals 180. This is correct. So Stinky was right there. Boom, Stinky. This one ends up, I think, being 47.5 when you correct it. So that is going through some of the thinking questions that we've been doing